Okay, so as you can see, I am joined by the one and only KCB, who is in his studio on this lovely Tuesday evening. How you going, Casey?
What's up? How you doing, Nick?
Not too bad, mate. How is lockdown treating you? Is it treating you as it is everyone else?
I'm in lockdown every day of the year, so it's really no different. The only difference is I get to hear other people complain about it as well.
That's true. I guess there is something in that. I mean, yeah, when you go on social media every day and you see the same people saying the same things just in a recycled fashion, it tends to get a little bit boring. But that's where people like ourselves, we can keep ourselves entertained because, of course, you with not just music, but also voiceover, previously radio. You also do film, TV, and music, of course, which is what we're primarily going to talk about. And I I did my little part three series on my little journey, and of course, you played a part in that through music influence. And also, I remember meeting you multiple times, thinking he's never going to remember me, and me being red faced at some moments because, like, yeah, I met you before, dude. How you going? I'm like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like one of those
Uh,
moments. But it's a mental thing for me.
I,
Um,
I can still tell you the first time we met. It was in Parramatta, and it was in a club that had sort of like a concrete walkway up to the front of the club.
Concrete walkway in Parramatta. Ooh, that's going
Yeah,
way back now.
yeah. See, you can't remember what?
I can't remember. Too long ago. Got a good memory there. Um,
Had Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola was good Coke for Casey, and a great shirt as well. And also, just a quick note, I just saw it before posted on Facebook. Richard Donner, the famous director of the first Superman series, passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah, sad, very sad, sad day.
Sad indeed. We know how much of a fan you are of Superman, as am I. So, Supes lives on. But to go back into the music discussion that we're going to talk about, hopefully it won't be too long. Don't want to take up too much of your time here. But music production nowadays is very simple. You hear it every day when you hear commercial radio. You can tell the same four-chord progression. It's a simple click, clap, some hi-hat, some percussion, a couple of chords, a couple of melodies, some stabs, some effects, some rises, some, I don't know, a bit of a cheesy vocal, a bit of a melody, and you've got yourself a top 10 hit. But way back when, in the obviously electronic music going back to the 70s with the whole disco scene and the house scene and all that sort of stuff. And actually, side note, there's a great doco on Netflix called What We Started, which focuses on Carl Cox and Martin Garrix on his first main set at Ultra Music. I think it was in 2013 or 14 or something like that. And they go through the history of electronic dance music from what we knew it in the 70s to what EDM is today, Armin van Buuren and all those other blokes. And from the very complex days of the 70s and the 80s, it sort of got progressively easier as home studios started to become a thing in the 90s. And you first started your music journey in the 90s as well, but it wasn't with electronic music. It was more so to do with with the rock band, and then you got into electronic music thereafter. So when it came to electronic music, what was that like for yourself getting into the hang of it in the 90s, and what did you do to actually get started to make electronic music?
Well, I started, God, what year was it? Around 91, as far as bedroom producing goes. I was at a time where Cubase was on Atari, and in order to open Cubase on Atari, you had to feed like 5 floppies in and swap them over to load it up. And the actual user interface looked like this black and white matrix screen. And I turned to dance music because all my life I'd love all genres. I remember, growing up listening to Michael Jackson with my parents and dancing on my mum's feet, listening to, the Off the Wall album. But as time progressed, I fell in love with, my dad was a drummer, so obviously I took up the drums too. But my early years of high school, I was a drummer in a rock band, and it just, people started missing rehearsals and not showing up. And I got to a point where I'm like, this is just fucking ridiculous. Like, I'm the one that has to carry like 15 drums around and cymbals and everything. Like, the singer can't even bother turning up. And at the same time, Wild FM had just launched. So this Wild FM was this, for those that don't know, it's just a radio station which literally took over radio the same way COVID's taken over society. All of a sudden, everyone in Sydney and Melbourne, it was just Wild FM. And I was listening to all this dance music and it was so infectious. Like, I haven't taken meth, but I reckon dance music back then was like injecting meth. Like, it just took over, it literally took over culture. And I'm not saying just from a clubbing underground aspect. It literally, like, I remember going into work. I started work the day after I finished school, and I was talking to people, like even my bosses knew about Wild FM. And, you know, it just, dance music, because I'd already been playing with Cubase, it's like, when the guys started missing rehearsals, Wild FM took off. It's like, yeah, man, I would start producing dance music. Because on Cubase, I was just mucking around, like writing, you know, little Italo dance kind of stuff, but nothing that really landed. Like, nothing that was a real style. Back then, like, there was no, around that time, you know, Hadaway, Corona, and JX, and Technotronic before that, you know, Technotronic really kicked it off for me. But then it just started progressing, and then there's, you know, guys like JX and just all these big dance, like, radio hits started happening. And from that, you know, Wild FM blew up, and it's like, man, I'm going to start producing dance music. And I did. And I failed miserably for years and years. And then I started working at a radio station called 99.3 FM. And Greg Plush was the manager owner. And he showed me Cool Edit, because by that time I'd bought so many Wild CDs. I think there's about 6 or 7 Wild CDs that had come out before I burst onto the scene. And I remember I wanted to start making mega mixes, and I was reaching out to Diego V, and I messaged him saying, hey man, can you teach me how you do mega mixes? It's just, I'm obsessed, like I'm insane. And I think he wrote back saying, hey man, I'm not sure how I can help you. It was something to that kind of effect. And I thought, okay, I respect it, you know, because I'd bought 3 of his EPs, man. Like, I'd bought about 4 or 5, I think he released about 4 or 5 EPs. It was around that time, Skits Mix was around Skits 1 or Skits 2. And man, it was from that moment on that I'm like, fuck, like, I have to get into this. Like, I have to get into this. So Greg Plush at the radio station showed me how to use Cool Edit, how to press record, how to cut, how to move something that was cut across like an audio clip. And so I started mucking around, and I started doing mega mixes. But it also allowed me to learn radio production. It was more radio production that taught me how to do mega mixes. But then mega mixes are what got me onto Wild. And then from that, Today FM called me up to be the production manager. And it's like, because I was doing mega mixes, I started making the Hot 30, which, anyway, that's a different story. That's radio. Yeah, I started mucking around in Cool Edit, and I put this, I was doing all this radio production, and then I get a call from Central Station Records one day, and I'm just doing 99.3 FM kind of imaging. I get a call, and it's Tim from Central Station. This was around 97 or 98, I think, maybe 98. And he goes, hey, we've heard all the stuff that you're doing on the station, or the radio you're doing. How would you like to do a Wild mega mix? I'm like, fuck, like, are you serious? Like, Central Station Records are calling me, asking me if I want to do a Wild mega mix. Like, why are you asking me? Like, tell me. I've got all the CDs at home. Like I said, I think it was around 6 or 7, Wild 6 or 7 by that time. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, do it. I go, but I haven't done a mega mix. I've been like farting around with him. And then he goes, okay, well, here's what we do. We'll do a test mega mix. And if it goes well and it's received well, we'll put you on a CD. So I did one. And it was called the KCB mega mix. And it had this old person at the beginning talking about, in my day, then computer music, blah, blah, blah. And it just blew up, man. Like, it literally blew up. The Wild were playing it, down in Melbourne were playing it. Like, all the dance radio stations around the country were playing it, and it was getting so many requests. That was being reported back to Central Station, and bang, like, they put me on Wild 11 straight away. Around that same time, just beforehand, I'd done my first bootleg, which was putting I can't get enough the vocal over the top of a Venga Boys track, which also
classic.
And somehow, and back then the internet didn't even exist, really. And to this capacity, it didn't exist to where we are now. And it was getting, someone in the UK ripped it off, put their name on it, and pressed it on vinyl. And it went out initially went out as a white label, because I remember it coming back to Australia and walking into Central Station, it was there, and I'm like, fuck, like, this is mine, and how does this happen? But not Central Station, the label, like, I'm talking about the shop, so I don't know how it got in. So then from the Wild 11 megamix, after I produced that, it's like my career just overnight just fucking smashed. Like it just like someone broke open a coconut, and it just fucking filled with jewels, man. Like my career changed from that one megamix, because people loved it. And I was like the new boy on the scene, someone new, because up until then it was only Diego, Alex K, and Nick Skitz. And then my name got added to the list. And that was it. That's from that moment onwards. And then because of the success of the megamix and I'd shown Central that I could actually use Cubase. I didn't show them I could use Cubase, but I could show them I could do dance music. But I hadn't really done anything releasable. And so I did a song called Super Quick Tempo.
Remember that? Kicking Hard 4, disc number 2, track 4 or 5, I think it was.
Oh, you're a legend. And man, like, yeah, I think that was my first track. And that was on Dinky. And then I did a whole bunch of Dinky record releases, and the remixes started piling in. And so I was doing around that time, like now we've got The Voice, and we have, or it's not Australia's Got Talent, we've got The Voice, and yeah, Australia's Got Talent, all those kind of shows. Back then it was called Pop Stars. So we had Bardo with Sophie Monk, came out of Pop Stars. I was asked to remix them. Then the next Pop Stars season came with Scandalous, and I was asked to remix them.
That's right, yep.
Just, man, I remember at one stage I had 3 remixes in the ARIA, like the real ARIA Top 40. 3 consecutive remixes in the ARIA Top 40 by the age of 22, I think it was. Mind you, I'd only really started one. So, man, that first year when I burst on the scene, it was literally like my life had just flipped around. I'd been in my studio or in my bedroom, banging away on Cubase and synths and buying little bits and pieces for 10 years, or nearly 10 years. But so when the day came, I was ready. I was ready for it. Now, I look back, and it wasn't the best work, but it's dance music. It doesn't need to be the best work.
I mean, when you think about it, when you look back in time now, you think of dance music and listen back then. And for me, you mentioned some big names here, Technotronic, JX, Hadaway, and Faithless. But for me, a big influence, or not really influence, but someone who I listened to a lot was Motivate. Anytime Motivate did a remix, you just had to get on it.
Oh, man, Motivate, man. Even their own songs. And then they did that mad remix of Gina G, Just a Little, which they did a re-release a few years after, and they asked me to remix it. So I'm like, following in the footsteps of Motivate.
That's it, man. It's amazing how the sound changes. You listen to it back then, and the kicks were punchy, but somewhat round, not really. Yeah. It just, you play it now, and it's like you can tell it's 90s. You hear it. It is the 90s, based on the production styles and the values at the time, based on the equipment that they used. And you said you're using, different synths, patching in and there, getting little components, plugging them into Cubase. And now you've got everything literally in a laptop. You can even make music on a phone these days. I mean, that's how far we've progressed when it comes to electronic music, at least. And you said back then, maybe the production, or it doesn't sound as good, but that's what makes it that. I mean, when you listen to rock music of the 70s, production-wise, compared to stuff today, it's dated. The miking techniques have changed, the spatial areas have changed, production techniques have changed overall, and they're classic hits. So, for example, one of my favorite tracks of yours, Be With You, which is an absolute classic. I mean, when I think KCB, that's the first track that comes to my mind. you can tell it's from that 2000s era. And that's what made it as good as it is. That's what makes it withstand the test of time.
I used a full mixing desk for that remix. Like, it was literally a massive desk this size. Like, I hired a studio to do that remix. I did it all at home in Logic, but then I bounced my stems, took some MIDI. I was using an Akai sampler for the donk. Some of the loops were actually in the software, but we were routing it all out onto the mixing desk. So it's funny because literally, no word of a lie, someone in the UK messaged me on Facebook literally about 3 weeks ago asking what software I used for Be With You. And the funny thing is, when people you get questions like every week. You usually get about 3 or 4 questions every week. And when people ask questions like that, it's like, you know, that they're listening to the sound and they can hear something different. And it's like, yeah, it's that 90s, early 2000s sound where it's not fucking banging crisp. It's not smashed brick. Everything's not brick walled to 0 dB.
Yeah,
it's like this big valley, and it's like, and even if you play it now, it sounds better if you lift the gain. Like, if you lift the gain to today's dance music, the tracks we did back then, I reckon, sound better than what. Okay, I think my work back then on the desk sounds better than what I do now, because the digital sound sounds digital. Like, but there's a to that too. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but yeah, when I play Be With You, well, I actually don't really play it, but when I listen to it, I can hear the organic sound of the desk. And then once I'd mixed it, I'd run it onto the DAT player to get the tape saturation, and then played that back into Logic. So it had, you know, the saturation, like the real authentic DAT saturation on it. And, you know, I can whip something up now in 40 minutes and play it back to back, and it's not the same.
Yeah, it's sort of like fast food music production, if you want to, you know, put a term that we could probably understand. It's quick, it's easy, and once it's done and dusted, you know, you're done with it. And then if you want to, you can go back and do it again, because it's a simple thing. It's a simple, especially in this day and age. I mean, just to get the attention span of the patrons half the time, that's just half the battle. Because I've had this discussion with other boys as well in our line of work, and when they make music, and you can't make 6-minute tracks anymore. They've got to be 3 minutes, 4 minutes max.
Man, you can't. Like, everything I've done now, it's 4 minutes 30, and 30 in, 30 out. So that leaves what, 3:30. So you're basically just making radio edits now. And now, if you look at the Spotify side of things, every producer out there won't make a track, or every smart producer won't make a track over 2 minutes 40, 2 minutes 45. Why? Because if it finishes quickly, they play it again. Now, all of a sudden, you've got 2 streams instead of 1. 10 streams become 20. 1 million streams become, you know, 1 million become 2 million. So now it's like, I've got this new single that I'm working on now, and I've been studying like track lengths, and that's how I discovered. It's like, man, how is someone getting 30 million hits on a song and they're an unknown? It's like, because obviously it's good music and they've got a good marketing team behind them, but the tracks are 2.5 minutes, 2:45 minutes. So when you say attention span, yeah, there's so much contributing to attention span now.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, I mean, even now, like when I go out clubbing, I'll say clubbing, when I go out to support people like yourselves and the other boys, I don't really go out clubbing for the fun of it. I mean, I'm not relatively old, but I just don't see any joy in it. But when I go out and I watch you boys play as well, you can tell some of the DJs who play still, you know, beat to beat, and you can see it sort of like drags on a little bit. I think the whole festival culture aspect of DJs, not just music production, but especially DJs who make their own music and play it, they need to be sort of, you know, pretty quick with their mixing. At a festival, you know what you're there for. You're there for the experience. You're there for the journey of the track itself. But when you're in the club, I don't think you can really sit there and play a track back to back 6 minutes in. So you got to be quick with it. And now, because it goes back to, you know, fast food production, I can make it quickly. It's good enough. It's going to work, and it's going to be banging. And you just fill your repertoire with 20 odd tracks, and you can bang 20 tracks in a 60-minute bracket if you really wanted to.
Yeah. Oh, easy. Well, even all the tracks, I'm a bit bipolar in the way that I love all genres of music, but you know, I can either play a wild anthem set at Decadence. at Decadence, the set is usually 75% the same because you know what they're there for. You sort of shake it up 15% so that people aren't like, oh, why do I keep coming to hear the same set? But the good thing about the Decadence boys is we all kind of know what we do and what part of the night. So with those tracks, for me, it's kind of like, okay, I'll play a lot of the tracks off the Wild 11 megamix I did, but I've cut them all down to 3 to 4 minutes. Like you can't play 6 minutes. It's like, yeah, everything's cut down, get in, get out, move on to the next one. Like you were there for Wild a couple of weeks ago, and the age is getting younger and younger. Like you still have your old school like there's patriots there, like, but you look around, like I was playing my set and I'm like, okay, she's probably under 20, she's under 20, she's under 20, she's under, well, okay, 30. And then you look out, it's like 50-50 people under 25. It's like, where are these people coming from? And it's because we keep doing these events, and people enjoy 90s music. They enjoy, early 2000s music, and dance music is no exception. Like they love it. But in order to keep them on the dance floor, you got to get in, get out.
Speaking of getting in, getting out, in production sense now, over your, say, 20-odd year career, say from the early 2000s till now, 2020, it's been 20 plus years, you have done multiple genres, you've worked with multiple artists. Again, you've done radio, you've done voiceover work and all that sort of stuff as well. So you've seen trends change a lot. And I remember Cool Edit as well. I learned Cool Edit when I did my radio production course way back when I think it was late 2000s. I was bored with work. I quit my job and I went back to studying, and then I ended up doing that.
You should have hit me up. I was the manager of Today FM. What are you stuffing around at little schools for?
No idea. Decided to do that, and we were using Cool Edit then. I think it got changed to Adobe Audition by that time. But I got so good at using it because I had prior experience to other DAWs like FL Studio, a little bit of Cubase, Acid Pro, and things like that. So in a sense, they're all sort of familiar. So you can jump between program to program. And when you go between program to program, you can adapt quickly and make music again pretty much on the fly. And now, because you don't have to carry around synthesizers and compressors and different types of tone generators and samplers and drum machines and all this sort of stuff, everything you can make is literally on a laptop that you can buy for $500. Spend a couple hundred more on a few audio programs, some decent quality VSTs, and you can make a banging track. Like, I'll use Martin Garrix again for an example. The kid at the age of 14 or 15 made Animals on FL Studio, and he used, I think it was Silence and a couple of cracked VSTs on a PC, mind you. I mean, that's the level of quality you can get when it comes to music production. So I want to ask you, is it a good thing that you can make such music so quickly? It might be seen as maybe cheesy or whatever, but I mean, surely it's got to be better than going to a dedicated studio and spending hours upon hours of time in there. Or am I thinking a little bit differently here?
If you asked me this question 20 years ago, I would have, well, actually, it wasn't possible 20 years ago. Okay. Had you asked me this question 2 years ago, I probably would have had a little bit more to say. I think with age comes a broader spectrum of acceptance. And I think for me, my acceptance of music is now, you're making music, but why? To feel good. You make music to feel good. You make music to make others feel good. All you're doing is you're making a product so that someone else can press play and just wash their shitty day away, their shitty week away. Someone who's broken up with their boyfriend or girlfriend, you want to make them feel good. It doesn't matter if it's on a computer. It doesn't matter if it's in a studio. None of that shit matters anymore. It's, can you make something that makes someone else feel good? And if you can do it in 10 minutes on a computer, power to you. And it sounds good, but on the other hand, make it sound good. Like, don't, if you're a producer, do it in 10 minutes, but if you're not a good producer, do it in 10 days, 10 weeks, like get it sounding right. I'm lucky enough that I've been working in audio since the 90s. Like I can whip something up in 45 minutes and guys are like, I don't know how you do it. And I
still don't know how you did it. Like, perfect example, Son of a Gun. You said you did it in under an hour. Bass line, kick, It's simple, but holy shit, man, that thing hits my heart like thunder right in front of me, dude. It is amazing.
Really?
Love it. Absolutely love it.
I'll give you the biggest secret to engineering and plugins. Okay, when we're talking about that track, the biggest secret is there's barely any plugins.
Yeah.
The kick, there's nothing on the kick. There's probably a little bit of EQ on the clap. The bass lines, I probably just put them in a group and gave them some EQ, not much compression. There's probably nothing on the master. And I've had guys, because I did a series of what I called B-grade mixes, which is stuff I do in 45 minutes to an hour, knock it out, purely for club use. Because people aren't going to sit there in a club and go, ooh, that bass line could have been a little bit higher, or, you know, that could have been blah. It's just stuff that I knock out to be able to play. I don't have a lot of time. I do not have a lot of time. Like, the stuff I make, I have to get it done quickly and get it out. But those B-grade mixes, it's funny for you to say that Son of a Gun bootleg mix was banging. It's literally got nothing on it. Like, if someone said to me, hey man, can you give me that session for this and this on your B-grade mixes, they just fucking pop. They're loud, the bass is banging. If I get my session, I'll be going, fuck this. Like, seriously? Like, there's nothing on it. Like, your secret is nothing. The secret to that. And then I'll do a full-blown release. Something like Take Me Away, or like right now I'm working on Every Day.
Yeah.
And it's like slaving over every little bit of engineering. Mind you, everything I've done up until this studio I'm here in now, I've only had this since September last year, and I've only released one track. Actually, it wasn't even Energy, so no one would know about it. Everything I've engineered over the since 2018, since coming back in the scene, I've been doing it with like a baby in the room next door. So everything I've produced properly still isn't produced properly because I've got it down low. I've only had time at night between 11 p.m. and like 6 a.m. So everything was done really low. Like, unless I ran out to the car and drove around like banging it out in the car, there was no real sort of window for me to engineer it properly. So, yeah, it can be done. Like, you can just, what we're talking about. Well, there was a question.
You can make banging tracks in 45 minutes that can have people like myself frothing over them.
Well, look, the difference between me and this dude here or this girl here, we got a sample pack of 10 kicks. They'll choose one kick. I'll choose one kick. My kick might be the louder, clearer kick. I don't put anything on it. And then 10 people listen to the track and go, fuck, how does he get that kick so banging? I don't. I just choose the right one to begin with. And then they might pick 10, like 2 bass lines and layer them. And I'll pick 2 bass lines. And then, or we all pick the same one, but then I'll know to drop more bass out and then give it a kick at the, sort of pull the kick in and then lift it up, you know, on the left side of the spectrum and make it louder just through EQ, but they won't know how to do that. And that literally takes 2 seconds because I've done it so many times I know how to do it. And then bang, I've got a banging kick and bass line in a matter of like 30 seconds. So the more you do it, the more knowledge. And then like I've screwed up. I've got lots of shit out there, which is really bad. Whether it's house, energy, whatever. Like I'm not like a lot of guys that just put out brilliant stuff all the time. Like I'm a little bit crazy and weird and bipolar where I'll do energy today and tomorrow I don't like energy anymore. So I'll do slap house. And then 3 days later, I don't even like music anymore. I'll shut down all my accounts and then I go and dip into film. And then I'm depressed with film. So what do? I come back to energy 2 weeks later. No, I'm crazy. Like, I'm crazy that way. People don't get it. Like, I'm weird, man. I'm so weird. But it helps with my creativity. Like, if I don't know, being weird and crazy, it's fuel for creativity.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I went out, not out rather, I went off for about 2-3 months from my last remix, and then I just brought out a track out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, he's back again. It's like, I didn't really go anywhere. I just didn't release something in 3 months because I wanted to give my mind a rest. I wanted to give it a break so I don't burn out and things like that. And
Yeah.
just going back what you were saying, like making track after track, whilst that's all good and well, if you are playing them or even have other people playing them still, I think there is something to be said in people, not just in music, as you said, TV, radio, writing, whatever it is. You always need to have a bit of a break to rest your mind, reset, rest your ears, and then start again. Because the last thing you want to be doing is forcing yourself to make music, making shit music, or just not putting as much effort as you probably should because you feel like you need to be doing something nonstop to keep out there.
And here's another thing that people need to realize too is stop comparing yourself to others. Like, just stop it, man. We didn't have this when I came into the scene, we didn't compare ourselves to others. Because right now everyone can release music. Everyone's a DJ. You set up your SoundCloud, get a fucking logo, stick it. The kids these days got t-shirts, stickers, and all that shit, and they haven't even got a song out yet. So it's crazy. But back then you had to earn your place as an artist. Like, you had to make decent stuff for a record label to turn around and go, you're going to be an artist now, a certified artist. Otherwise, no one knew who you were. But now anyone can. But fuck, sorry, I've forgotten again. I'm going crazy. What was the original?
No, it was just making tracks non-stop that you don't burn out and making something worthwhile, not forcing yourself.
Yeah. But the other thing is, stop comparing yourself to others, because you can be onto something magical and you don't know it. So this is where the magic happens. And then you're working along, something sounds great, and then you hear something someone else does or whatever, and you're like, oh, fuck, well, that sounds better than mine. And then you pull out, but your sweet spot in the production was happening right here, and you gave up here because someone else did something that sounded awesome.
Yeah. I know what that's like. I felt like that before previously. Many a time, you release tracks and then someone comes out with the track out of nowhere like, well, I can't make this sort of stuff. How am I going to stand out? But I've gone past that and I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I've actually realized that you definitely have fans, which is clearly evident. I mean, people love you when you go out and play, and it's like, there's KCB, there's the man with the dulcet baritone voice, the guy I hear on voiceovers. He's the radio man. He's the Mr. Wild FM from back in the day, the megamix and all that sort of stuff. And now I'm starting to get fans. It's like, oh, Nick, can we have a photo with you? And I'm looking at him. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, why? Like, we love your music, man. It goes, well, we pump it nonstop. We love crank it. I'm just like, that's mad. Appreciate that. Yeah, let's take a photo together. And like you said, you make music that makes other people happy, that gets other people inspired or gets them jumping or cheery. Because like you said, we play music for an hour at best a week, maybe every 2-3 weeks. And that hour you give to someone to make them feel good about themselves or cheer them up of their particular issue or whatever situation they're in. I think that's the least you can do to these people. They're paying money to come and watch you play and play music. And if you can return the favor and make them happy in the process, I mean, that's just an added bonus. And yeah, stop comparing yourself to other people. Everyone is their own artist.
Look, man, your career, my career in terms of radio or whatever, anyone's career could be tomorrow morning. You just don't know it. But if you give up tonight or sort of just go, that's it, like I'm done, which is what I did in 20. Okay, my career kicked off around 2000, 2001. Bang, like massive. Around 2005, TV rock blew onto the scene. Everything turned to house music. Ministry of Sound, Wild, and everything kind of started getting suppressed. I kind of adapted with the scene to sort of move into that music because there were no bookings. Like, donk was dying, energy was dying. No one wanted to know about it. It was a joke. It was a joke.
I remember those days, yeah.
So I adapted to house music. That's why when you go on Spotify, there's a lot of bad house music of mine too. Like, it's just so. And then in 2010, I just gave up. I just, I'm done with music. Turned to film. Then around 2015, Alex got me back to do some events. Mind you, I was still doing the radio show, so I never really left. I just stopped producing. I was doing the radio show around the country each week. But then Alex called me back for a couple of gigs. I think one of the gigs we did with Sunset Brothers, because they were promoting as well. But around 2015, I remember sitting in a cafe with Alex, and I said, "Man, I'm done. Like, I'm just done. Like everything. I'm just turning my back on music because it's too painful. When you love something, but you can't devote yourself to it, it actually becomes painful because everything you're doing in your day job or family or spending time with your loved ones, in the back of your head as a creative artist, it's like, oh, I've got an idea for a track, but it doesn't matter because I don't have time for it. And it starts eating away at you. So I had to make the decision around 2010 just to let it go. And I remember around 2015, and Alex was going, "Come on, man, like I'm gonna start something that's called Decadence." And I'm like, "Fuck, man, I'm tapping out. I'm done." He goes, "You're not done." I'm like, "I'm done." He's like, "Come on, you know, you, me, the boys, we'll bring back energy." And mind you, like no one around then was real. The energy was kind of dead. There were a couple of, you know, there was passion every now and again and a couple of other things, but they were kind of like these single nights, single events time to time. And so I said, "All right, Alex." I go, "I'm in." He's like, "Cool." So it started, and halfway through my set, I said, I messaged him going, "Man, you know what? I'm done." And I left my set. I go, Rada, you got to get on. Rada came and was like, "Oh, what's wrong, man?" I go, "Man, I can't do this." Man, I freaked out. I left I left. My father's he was a chauffeur at the time, so he came past, picked me up in this awesome car, and he goes, "How was it?" I said, "Dad, man," I go, "it was the worst." I go, I couldn't do it. The crowd was loving it, but I was up there just dead inside. Like, and then Alex coach me through, he goes, "Come on, man." He goes, "Everyone has a bad night." And then Rada's like, "Yeah, man, you know, I've been there too." And like all the boys are like, "Yeah, Case, we've all been there, man. It's a one-off night. You go back the next week or the next month and everything's perfect again." So I went back the next month and fucking smashed it. Like it was awesome. And I'm like, "Man, thanks boys." Like, you know, and so from that, I had heaps of people, even from the UK, Sydney, like, "Oh, when are you going to do an energy track again?" Because I hadn't done an energy track in, I think, 13, 14 years.
I was actually going to ask. I think I know where you're going with this. I was going to actually lead into it, but go on.
You want to ask it or you just want me to keep going?
Keep going. I'm enjoying this.
So I thought, I can't keep playing just club anthems. I've got to start doing something of my own. And people were just hounding, "When are you going to do an energy track again?" So I thought, "Oh, fuck it. All right. Okay. You know what? I'll give in. I'll do it." Because around that time, there's only 3 people and kind of still doing energy. Alex, Outsource.
Sorry, Ben.
Sorry, Nina. And Sunset Brothers. So it was kind of like, it was a scene, but there wasn't a scene. There's kind of no energy scene, except for what we're doing at Decadence and those spot events. And so through Decadence, I'm thinking, okay, the scene's kind of coming back. This is happening once a month. I've got to release a track. People want it. So one night I was fucking around, whipped something up, stuck it online. The next morning, like, I'm pulling figures. I'm probably making them up now because I can't actually remember. But I've done a podcast with you, and that was current at the time, so the right numbers are back then. But I remember waking up and it being shared hundreds of times, probably if not thousands. It had thousands and thousands of views, so many comments. And I'm useless to social media. Like, I'm the worst person at social media. Around that time, I'd be lucky if I'd get like 30 comments, 10 views. Like, it was just, I still really don't care about social media because I'm just hopeless at it. But man, and it was called 9 p.m. and it just went berserk. Like, it went crazy. And then Skitsy called me up. He's going, "Hey man, that 9 p.m. you did, let's release it." I'm like, "Oh, I just did it on a 30-day trial of Ableton because I hadn't."
Back to basics.
And so by the time it all blew out, like, he's like, "You know, you got to release it." So we released it, I remade it because at the time when I'd done that little video for Facebook and dropped it, it was, I had sampled the original song. So I recreated it, and then bang, like international #1 on iTunes around the world, different ones, different countries. As you know, like Spotify picked it up and put him in like 14,000 playlists. 14,000 playlists. Some of their biggest playlists, like I'd gone from in a cafe with Alex K, if you don't know who I'm talking about, but you all do.
Yeah.
Come on, just come back. And then Skitsy going, man, you got to release this. To bang, all of a sudden being like the first donk energy artist to be placed in these EDM-driven playlists. Like I was next to Tiesto, Armin van Buuren, all the big names, you know, David Guetta. And there I am with 9 p.m. donk, 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 donk. Like, it's fucking insane. It's absolutely insane.
You know what? It is one of my favorites, man. It's one of my favorite tracks of yours. You remade a classic that many have tried and failed, in my opinion. The closest version I can say I enjoyed of 9 p.m. before yours was one from Gary D. And I think it was made in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Very old school energy type sounding. And I thought, no, this can't get any better. And lo and behold, there you are, with straight 27-second intro in, bang, drop straight into the little melody, little guitar riff there. And then as it goes to the drop, you just hear like a double clap and then just the fattest kick and the biggest donk you can imagine. And it's just magical. If I'm playing somewhere, if I'm on the card and you are, I won't play it because I know you're playing in case you will. But if I've got a private party, or if I'm doing a boat cruise, or if I'm playing at a club where you're not there, I'm dropping that 100%. I played it at Ivy at Pure Energy actually on Boxing Day 2019 before the whole shit took over and the place erupted.
Awesome, man. Yeah, Nick played it at Wild a couple of weeks ago and literally mixed out of it about 40 seconds later. Because when I arrived, he goes, "Oh, sorry, man." He goes, I played 9 p.m. just out of habit, and then I realized you were on after me." He goes, "I ripped out of it straight away." So yeah, but you know what the funny thing about that is when we released it, like I said, I had, you know, a baby in the room next to me, so I had it down low when I was engineering it. And I called Nick up and I said, "Man, don't release it yet." I go, "I've just sort of A-B'd it towards next to other tracks which are out there and it's heaps low. Like I got to engineer it properly." He's like, "Oh man, it's a bit too late." So if you're saying it booms and sounds good, that's awesome, man. Because I was panicking that it was too soft and, you know, wasn't thriving.
No, man, the whole thing is epic. And I think we'll sort of wrap this up now. I don't want to go for too long because I know I could talk for hours. You could talk for hours. I mean, so much we can discuss when it comes to music and all that sort of stuff. But just more so on the particular sound, because you used what we call a donk, or what's normally known as a clubhead, which has been used by hundreds of artists probably in dance music throughout the 20, 30 odd years it's been around. Skitsy's used it.
Marshmallow's got a song out now with practically a donk in it.
Exactly, like it's everywhere. And even slap bass, you can probably say, is very similar to donk. But back then, clubheads were pretty much using it. Everyone knows Kicking Hard, which is sort of became the clubhead, that bamboo sound or whatever it is. I still don't actually know the origins of the clubhead. And I remember...
I was sitting at a gig with them. I was sitting next to them. They came out late 97, 98. I can't remember. They came out. They did a gig in Sydney. I remember I was sitting backstage with him. They were using Cubase on Atari, using floppies as well at the same time. So they were telling me all about it. And I said, "Man, how'd you do it?" And they're like, "They wouldn't tell me."
No,
I don't know.
I don't know your secrets. No secrets.
And you can go on YouTube now, and you got like 5,000 guys going, "Well, look, here's how you make a donk." And, you know, they're using Serum or whatever, or, you know, Silent. No one's actually making the real donk. But you look at all the guys doing, I was going to say energy, but it's more bounce. Like the UK guys, bounce.
Yeah, yep.
Yes. Their stuff starts around 150 BPM. It's banging. It usually sounds all the same. Bounce. You got us doing energy, which kind of starts around 140. Man, it kind of... There's a wide spectrum of what energy is for us, but bounce is pretty much, what it is. I reckon all of them are using the same one sample on just about 85% of their donk tracks. And it's actually, I think it's in Vengeance, the Vengeance Club Essentials 3, I think is that has a clean donk in it, which a lot of the guys are using.
Yeah, it's got a couple, I think, off the top of my head. I think it's got 2 or 3. It's got the donk from Alex K's Gotta Be Love, if anyone needs a reference.
But, you know, back then, everyone was sampling everyone. It's like, where did the original donk come from? Like, even clubheads won't tell us.
Yeah.
Like, did they rip it from some dude? Like, there's no ripping back then because it was all studio work. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, it is such a unique sound that has just been sampled over and over again. But for those, if you're watching, you see, even 2 nights ago, I had a dude come through. I was going to give him a shout out, but I'm doing this on my phone, asking me what I use in the videos that I post. And I said, it's lethal. I go, all those kind of donkey sort of energy bass lines, they're pretty much all within, they've all been collated, resampled, or actually just some of them are, most of the stuff in lethal is, in fact, probably all of it, except for the donk, I'm not sure, has been recorded from the original synths.
Yeah.
And that's got just about every bass line you've heard in our genre.
I'm a user of it. I love it. That's what I go to for my energy music, man. When I make tunes, that's what I go for. And there are some very familiar sounds. Like you'll listen, oh, I know that clap from somewhere. Oh, I know that hi-hat. Oh, that bass line. I know I've heard that bass line before. And they're all there, man. Like Soca Boys, you know, bump steady bass lines in there. And all these others that you'll hear from back in the day. All the Moog organs, like the Show Me Love organ bass lines, and even the old SM Tracks organ bass lines as well. Like they're in there. So many bass lines to pick from. And you know what? It just goes to show, again, we're going full circle. The 90s brought us some classic music, some classic sounds that are still used today in modern production, in modern music. Man, you know what? The 90s is probably like literally the glory days of electronic dance music.
Oh man, I keep saying decadence because up until COVID, it was my reference to the market, and it was monthly. So I think it's, and I know you do weekly down at Parramatta, but the crowd for our music is getting younger and younger. Like, I don't see it ever reaching, you know, the heights of radio or, you know, what EDM's doing, but it's our sound. It's our Sydney sound. For us in Sydney, we can see that the numbers are getting younger and larger. And I don't care if it doesn't venture out past Sydney, because it's our thing, man. We love it. Like, if everyone else wants in, power to us. It's awesome. Yeah. But I'm happy to see our scene, our Sydney scene, expand and get younger. And you know how, this is the most embarrassing thing. Do you know how many people at gigs now come up to me and say, my mum put me onto your music?
Oh, really?
My dad put me on your music? Or like, I grew up listening to your music. And it's weird because when people tell me that, I think of me listening to Michael Jackson with my mum. And I'm not putting myself, and I'm just a guy that makes dance music in Sydney and underground. Like, I'm not putting myself next to Michael Jackson. But the idea of hearing someone tell me that they've had an experience which I did, it makes me smile, because you know your music has made someone happy. And that's why I just keep going back to it, man. Music, you just make music for happiness. That's all it is.
100%. We do it to make people happy. We do it to be creative. We do it because we love it. And you know what? I hope you never go into another lull period where you stop. And until you physically can't move your hands anymore or your ears are shot, I want you to keep making music, so long as you're physically possible.
Man, you look at David Guetta. What's he, nearly 60 now?
Pushing.
It doesn't matter, man. And that's a good thing now. Because remember, I was going to say, when we were younger, you're still young. Man, if a 40-year-old walked into a club when I was 20, it's like, oh, old man. I kind of feel like that's changed now. Like, maybe it's just because of the events we do. Like, there's a wide range. But you look at all the big DJs from when we were young, they're still the big DJs now. But they're not 25 anymore. They're 45, 55, 65. And I feel like it's good now because age is being more accepted, because it's the older guys bringing out a lot of the hits. And just to touch on that we spoke about earlier about making music inside a laptop, The Weeknd, his producer, does it on a laptop.
I've actually noticed that. I've actually noticed people do this sort of stuff. I think I've seen, yeah, a perfect example, The Weeknd, like banging track. If you actually look at, I mean, I did a remix of it myself more so because I love the original track and I thought, you know what, I want to give it like an 80s feel, but still make it energy. And I gave it a shot and it's probably one of my, not my greatest work, but it's loved by some people out there. So I'll let you play it all you want. But looking at the breakdown of that track, because I love looking at how tracks are made, what's used, how they did the process, what they did to make this sound and that sound and whatever. And when you break it down to its bare components, there's nothing to it. There's really nothing to it, but it's a #1 mega global hit. That's what trips me out.
Well, up until now, it's always been, well, up until recently, there's always been that debate, analog over digital. And like I said, it's all about happiness at the end of the day. But when you talk about a multi-winning Grammy artist, his album was done on a freaking laptop. Some of the vocals weren't even recorded through a preamp like this. This is one of the world's best preamps right here, and I use it for my voiceovers on TV and radio. But a lot of the guys use it for their albums. And The Weeknd didn't even use a preamp on lots of his vocals. It's just through universal, like an universal audio, which is what I have here, the mic into the universal audio, into the laptop, and then it's just plugins.
That's it. Yeah. Plugins, man.
They recorded so much of his last album on a bus or wherever they were without all the fancy studios. And look what he's done. Look what they've done. So, man, if you have Fruity Loops and you know how to do it, that's all you need. Get some speakers or phones, you're done. You got a studio.
That's it, man. I mean, I've got people now, youngins and even people my age that are getting into it, asking me for tips and tricks and how to do things. I'm like, why the hell are you asking me? Like, shouldn't you be asking someone like a Casey or an Alex if you can ever get hold of a bloke, or, you know, someone like that? Ask someone who actually, you know, is a pioneer of this stuff. They're like, no, but you do something that I love and I don't know how to do it. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, listen to this section here and then. I'm like, and I turn into one of those people that you mentioned before. There's nothing really to it. It's just two of these patches and then a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And that's what it is. He goes, wow, I can't get it to work. How the hell do you get it to work? I'm like, it's just something I do. Like, it's my own little technique. And it's those little things that make a difference, man. It doesn't matter whether it's a 45-minute track or a 45-hour track that you spent, you know, a whole week on effectively. It depends on when you make it to a point where you can say, yes, I'm happy with this. It's
just through repetition. You do a track. Man, a couple of days ago, someone asked about tracks, and I said, go and make your first 5 shitty tracks, and then be happy with your 6th one. Your first one, you're going to play, you go, oh, that sucks. Get angry, turn it off, come back the next day, listen to it. Yeah, it sounds all right. Release it, kind of be a little bit embarrassed. Well, not release it, put it on SoundCloud, whatever you do. 2nd track, yeah, it's still not as good. Man, you keep getting better. Like you said, people starting to like come to you now. Had you not been making music and gotten better, like when they say to you, how do you do this? You know that if you and him or her sat down and had an EQ, like you, with a flat EQ like that, if you did that with the EQ and they did that, makes all the difference.
That's what
your track could be booming. It could be sitting next to another track and sound fat just because you pushed something up and they pushed it down.
Yeah.
So when we say we don't do much, it's just little tweaks, but it's through knowledge. Like, we've done enough times to know you do that, this happens, you do that, that happens. I don't want to be doing that.
Yeah. It's like the saying, it's, you know, I think it's like there's a propeller that gets blown from a massive ship and they bring out the tech to go have a look at it, and he's looking and, you know, 10 minutes later, he's like, I found your problem. It's this little screw. That'll be $1,000, please. It's like, what, $1,000 for 10 minutes and a screw? It's like, well, you're not paying me for the fixing the screw or whatever. You're paying me for the knowledge that I possess because I'm able to tell you what is wrong with it. Same sort of deal when you're working for something, working on something constantly, you get to know it inside out. And because you can hear something or you know something, it's like, okay, yep, I know what needs to be tweaked. And it's like, wow, I've been, you know, stuck on these for 3-4 days. You come here and in 5 minutes you've solved my problems. It's because you've done it enough times where you know what you need to do. And like you said, you want to get better at something, you just got to keep doing it, man. You got to practice.
Well, I remember hearing when you came back, because I remember the last podcast we did, 2018, 2019, you were telling me
now, yeah,
you said your hard drive's just full of unfinished tracks. And I remember saying, man, finish them, like go and finish them. And I remember not long after you started finishing tracks and putting them out there. Then a year passed, and I think another year passed, and then you did something, and I remember thinking, I'll play this.
Was it like Broken Bones that I did?
Nah,
No,
I loved that.
You've actually played a couple of my bootlegs, I think, at the mill once. I remember you asked me for some tracks.
Yeah.
And you dropped them at the mill.
My remix of that, I could hear that you were still kind of finding yourself. So I never played it, and that's just, but don't be offended because I don't even play my own stuff. I don't play. But I remember hearing a couple of years later, you did something, I'm like, fuck, that made me look and listen, and I heard it. And then I heard something else. I'm like, okay, he's found himself. Like he's starting to, like SM Project. I remember he was sending me beginning too, and then through repetition, it's like you can hear people growing. You were growing, SM Project, all kind of finding themselves, and then leading to that point. Remember, I was saying here before, this is the sweet spot. It's like you have to get the shitty tracks out of the way. Get the shitty tracks out of the way. Start sounding okay. Bang. All right, you've locked in the gear, and then you just fucking. And that's from there on. You start changing people's lives. They start loving the music. And then what do? They come to your gigs and they want your photo and they want to know how you do it. They want to know, man, your tracks are booming. And I remember there's a point in time where it's just like you were reborn and all your tracks were banging from that moment forward.
It feels a bit like that. Yeah, I think you're right. You get yourself in a certain position.
Your kicks were crisp. Your bass was clear. You know, there was space between, sounds, and I could, it was tough sounding. And it's like, yeah, Nick has arrived.
Yeah, I've had a few people actually say, how the hell do you get your sound so clear? Like it doesn't sound over compressed. And I'm like, well, the trick is you don't over compress it, but at the same time, you don't want to be fanging everything at, 0 dB nonstop. You want to give things their own time and place. You want to space them out. Again, there's a lot of EQ involved. People think, I don't need to EQ. Maybe you don't, but I find that it helps me just reduce the bottom end on something, increase the mid and the high on something else, and bang, you've got yourself a completely different contrast of two different sounds that just fit nicely in the mix. And that's what it comes down to, engineering. And you know that more than anyone here. And
engineering is a jigsaw. It's like this part goes here, this part goes here, this part goes here. And you got to cut out to allow something else in that spot, cut that out to allow something in that spot. When you first start out, you just put everything up. So it's just like one big booming kind of fucking mess.
Yep.
Yeah. But man, you got there. Like, you know what you're doing.
I like to think so.
Can I have your autograph, man? I get a photo with you.
Next gig, come find me.
All right, I'll do that.
I think we need an updated photo anyways, but I think we'll leave it at there. I've thoroughly enjoyed this discussion, and hopefully people listening as well, not just in Sydney or Australia, but in the UK as well. I know we've got a lot of people in the UK that listen to our music, and shout out to the people over there, man.
There's more people in the UK, I reckon. It's awesome. It's awesome to have like a brotherly, sisterly kind of country that enjoys what we do as much as we enjoy what they do.
Yeah, it's great to see. But Casey, thank you very much for joining me on this. Thoroughly appreciated.
All good, man. Hey, keep an eye out for my new single too.
Hey, man, I heard it, and I'm like, yeah, I got to get this. I'm like, yep, this is going straight into clean. Just like This Is Your Night. I play that at the Albion when I play house.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
I'm going to do an energy version of that. I haven't. I probably never will. But yeah, all right, good, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Once again, thanks to Casey and everyone out there. Hopefully everyone's staying safe during this shitty period. But, we always got the music to fall back on. And so long as we've got the tunes, we'll be all right. And I think we'll leave it there. And thank you very much. And everyone stay safe out there.